Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to the Josh and Artemis Show. Tonight, we are switching gears. We've got a special guest on tonight. Two ladies from the Women's Right Network in Australia are joining us in about 10 minutes. Kit and Monique. They are doing really great things in Australia, so we're going to let them basically have the platform to share what they're doing, what they're all about. And yeah, we're really looking forward to it. We did highlight it on the show, a week ago or something?
Yeah.
About what they kind of were working on.
I'm basically just highlighting the Equality Bill, which is the New South Wales Equality Bill in Australia. I believe when we did this show, I think it was last week, I think the vote to bring this in is going to be on the 8th of February. So it's coming up now. And it's very concerning. We're seeing this all over the world, really. We're seeing it here. We're seeing it in America, the UK, that they're trying to bring these new laws in, which effectively erode women's rights and erode girls' rights. And, we're very passionate about this because, we have young girls here and we don't want to see this happen. And, of course, we all have families who have females in them, and it's a subject which I think is a bipartisan thing in some ways. I lost my words there.
I hate that.
Yeah,
lose your train of thought.
I think that this is one of these issues which everybody can kind of get behind, and everybody can see that this is wrong, even though we're told that this is the right thing to do by governments and charities and organizations. But when you actually ask the general public about this, they're pretty unanimous in thinking that this is completely wrong. So it's very strange to us how, all of these new laws seem to be trying to get forced through against the public opinion. So we'll get into all that. And obviously Monique and Kit from the Women's Rights Network in Australia will be joining us soon. So before we start the show, as usual, guys, if you're brand new, please give us a like, a sub, and a share. It does really help the channel.
For sure. And make sure to follow us on X. And if you do want to support the show that little bit further, you can become a YouTube or Patreon member. You can also donate on buymeacoffee.com. All the links are in the description and, of course, on the bio of our homepage on X and on YouTube. We do want to say thank you to all of our YouTube and Patreon members. It does mean a lot to us. We do go live every day at 8 p.m. Eastern. And, a lot of research and time goes in behind the scenes to help bringing you what we do on the show. So it does mean a lot to us.
For sure. And apologies, guys, I do have a cold. So if I do seem like I'm not at my usual self today, then it is because of that. So apologies in advance. So let's share our screen then. And I guess we'll go through just to give us an overview of the Equality Bill again, because we did actually go through this, but we'll give you a little refresher before we bring Kit and Monique in, who should be here in about 10 minutes time.
For sure. Good to see you, Lindsay, and good to see you, Grandmaster UV.
Good to see you guys.
It's your first time in the chat since you were gifted a membership. David actually gifted, I forget how many memberships, but 5 or something like that.
I think it was 5,
or maybe a bit more. But anyway, so good to see you. We've got Kate in the chat from Sydney, Australia.
Good to see you, Kate.
Good to see you. Hope you're doing well.
Yeah, I think is it about 12 o'clock there?
Yeah, it's just after 12.
Lunchtime. I hope you had a nice morning and glad to see you here.
Yeah, it's in the future right now, 12 o'clock
And also
Tuesday.
It's summer there.
I know.
Which I'm jealous of because it's absolutely
so
freezing.
Jealous. I wish we could just live in Australia for half the year.
Yeah, it's absolutely freezing here, guys. We've been shoveling the driveway, just endless amounts of snow, and you guys are on the beach over there.
Yeah. We've got Jay here from Sydney, Australia. Thanks for having the wonderful women on. Oh, we're really excited. And yeah, my dad actually lived in Sydney for about 10 years. And I said, why did you move and come to Canada where it's freezing? We've got Kay from Adelaide. Good to see you.
Good to see you guys.
Sarah from Sydney. That's amazing. Very hot recently. Yeah. I think it's like in the 30s or 40s over there. Good to see you.
Jealous.
I know. Very, very jealous.
Very jealous.
I mean, we get nice summers here in Canada, though. I mean, I think people kind of have a wrong assumption of like what Canada summers are like, but we get into the 30s, sometimes even up to 40-degree weather. This is Celsius, of course, but yeah, it gets pretty nice and hot in here. It's just the winters are brutal. But
For sure.
It is what it is.
Well,
we've got Monique backstage. I can see
Monique
her.
Monique is here. I can see her. Should we bring her in, I guess?
Yeah. No, we'll leave her backstage. Yeah, let's bring her on.
Here she is.
Good to see you.
Hello, everybody. Nice to be on. Sorry, did I come on too early?
No. Even better.
Yeah, we start at 8, so you're actually late, to be fair. So, so yeah.
We won't judge you on that.
And we've got Kit, I think you mentioned that she's going to be joining as well.
Yeah, she'll be joining at 12:15 our time, which is 1:15 your time. Yeah.
Great stuff.
Yeah, we're still stuck in Monday here, so
yeah. Lovely to be sitting here in Sydney.
Yeah, because I think we were talking to you guys and we got confused with the time again. And
we'll be honest, it was me who told. When we were talking, I was like, oh, you know what? I didn't realize about the day ahead. Like, I should have remembered that, really. But I was like, that was my fault. I was like, oh, right. You're already in Monday, aren't you? So, yeah, can we do Tuesday? Yeah, it was my fault.
That's okay. As we say here, which you might say there too, but no worries at all. No worries at all.
True.
We say it a lot. Yeah. No worries.
Yeah, it's nice to see you here. So, I guess we'll just go ahead and start the show then. So you've been doing some great work with the Women's Rights Network, which we have been keeping a close eye on. We did a show, I believe, just over a week ago now, and we did our best to highlight this because it's very concerning to us. You know, we're parents ourselves. We have young girls here, and we're seeing a trend not just in Australia, but all over the kind of Western world, I guess you could say, that they're trying to force these laws into society. And I guess you could say against the public opinion of the general public. I mean, because we've often said this here, but, you know, most people don't agree with this stuff in the slightest. So what do you think is the reason, I guess, why they're trying to force this through, which goes against the public opinion?
Yes, why they're forcing it through, that's the golden question, of which I think there are many, many answers. In Australia, we've actually had this sort of legislation passed in every state and territory, and New South Wales, which is the last, has been left last. It's the biggest state. It is I wouldn't call it a conservative state. Some people might, but it's definitely one of diverse media here. It's harder to get things pushed through, unless, of course, our state parliament is very unstable politically, and then they'll just do anything to keep power. That's my personal opinion. So why are they pushing it through? Well, in terms of our equality bill, they are actually pushing it through last.
Right.
And they're trying to do it by stealth.
Yeah,
of course.
What does that then teach us about, well, why they're pushing it through? Because they know that they do know that the public isn't for this. I think there's different reasons why Alex Greenwich himself. I mean, when you read this bill, when I first read it, I described it like, you know how there's gender ideology, right?
Yeah.
And you might describe it as like a Borg, like a gender ideology Borg, like if it was personified.
Yeah.
Like this bill came from the Borg itself, you know, with all the nonsense, right? From, on one hand, the sex self-ID, which seems to be the basis of what they want. Basis. And then there's stuff about legalizing, procuring, surrogacy overseas, legalizing procurement into prostitution. I mean, Kit will speak more about this, I'm sure. She's very on top of the bill. But there's all these, it's a big, vast-ranging bill. So this bill, why is it being put forward? Well, it's an opportunistic bill. to change everything about everything in legislation about the definition of woman, on sex work, which is not a thing, surrogacy, and then this gender stuff to just in one fell swoop get it all done.
Yeah.
That's what's motivating Alex Greenwich. He thinks he has the power. He thinks he holds the balance of power and he can get it done. I'm not persuaded that it's to protect trans people because it's not how the bill reads. And is he motivated by misogyny, like anti-women? Well, it's a plausible outcome.
Seems that way to me. Seems that way to me from what I've seen of him. And so let's get this clear. So Alex Greenwich is the one who's the main voice in trying to force this through. Is that correct? Or
that's correct. So he's an independent MP,
right,
with a lot of power in New South Wales. He's gotten through a lot of bills. He's sort of the one that both parties use to propose a bill that they can then amend and get through. At least that's how I read it. Many women think that Alex Greenwich probably has some stock on other politicians, and that's why he has so much power. But yeah, so he is the MP that is proposing this bill, and he sort of fits into the more nutty wings of either we have a two-party system here, but you know, a coalition system, and then another party. So yeah.
We've got Kit backstage.
Let's bring her in then.
Bring her in. Hello.
Here she is.
I'm going to actually update this.
Okay.
Oh, you can.
How are you, Kit? You okay? Can you hear us? Hello?
I'm not sure she can hear us. Kit, can you
Hi,
hear
can
us?
you guys hear me?
Yes, we can now.
Yeah.
How are you?
Just hate the layout, but I can't save it. All right.
Kit, can you hear us?
Can you hear us, Kit? Hello?
Hello.
I guess we're having some issues. Can you send her a message in the private chat?
Okay.
See if she can see that. If you can hear us, Kit, there's a private chat. We'll send you a message in there just to make sure that your audio and stuff okay. Apologies for this, guys.
Sorry,
in the chat, we'll get this resolved ASAP for you. Yeah, so you were kind of.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Oh, you can't.
Oh, you can't. Okay. Maybe we could.
If we remove her and bring her back in.
I think she's gonna do that.
Okay. Apologies for this, guys. We'll get Kit back as soon as we can. So you were saying there about the two-party system, one being a coalition government. What's the feeling with the other party? Because is this just one political party trying to push this through, or is there is the opposition party on board with this as well? If that makes sense.
Yeah, I suppose I should be clear. The probably original answer to your question, the most clear one, is it's the activists who are pushing this, which we all know. Currently, we have the coalition party isn't in government at the moment. It's the Labor Party, which is the sort of centre-left party. So was your question was who's pushing it? The activists are pushing it. They've been doing lots of lobbying. Hey, Kit, can you hear us now?
Hello, I can hear you now.
There we go.
Apologies for that. There's some issues with the audio, but we've got you here now, and it's a pleasure to see you. So thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah.
Great to meet you guys. Thank you so much for raising this issue. We're struggling with a bit of media blackout on these sorts of issues here in Australia, and it's really hard to raise the profile. So thank you. I really appreciate you having us on.
Of course. Yeah, anytime.
No, you're welcome. I mean, we talk about this issue pretty much every single day, which does get tiring at times because it's a difficult subject to talk about, I guess, but we do feel passionately about it. And, you know, if there's anything that we can do with our small voice, really, that we'll do our best to help you guys to raise awareness, because to me, it just can't be allowed to happen. You know, it just goes against everything that we should be standing for as people, not just in Australia, but all over the world, that, you know, women and girls deserve equal rights. It should be a given. And you know, we sit here, we discuss this, we debate this behind the scenes a lot. And we're constantly left just scratching our heads as to why this has happened in society over the past few years.
And that's the thing, is most people have no idea what's happening. And especially if we're talking about the LGBTIQA plus equality bill, very few people understand actually what's in the bill itself. It's really just been sold as it's going to finally give us equality for the LGBTIQA plus community. And that's really, it's a surface conversation that's being had by the politician who drafted the bill. And I think most people just accept that on face value, and they don't look into it, and they don't realise that this bill is going to remove protections against pimping and prostitution in New South Wales. They don't realise that it's going to open the door to reproductive exploitation of women in New South Wales. They don't realise that it's declassifying, it's actually mandating in law that gender dysphoria would not be a mental illness. So it has these far-reaching provisions, and they don't realise that it's classifying a new type of family violence, which is where you don't support the transition of someone in your family. That's actually, you can get like an apprehended violence order issued by a court against you if you don't support the transition of a family member. And most people just look at this and they say, oh, okay, yep, we're happy to support the LGBT community. We're happy for people to live their lives. You know, they're not hurting anybody. And they don't realise the fundamental changes that are being written into our law. And I mean, which is why we're here speaking about it.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And, you know, you're saying all of those disturbing points there, and it is a trend which we've seen across the world, really. You know, we talked about this a few days ago, of some legislation they're trying to bring in Scotland, where if a parent misgenders a child, then they could face up to 7 years in jail, which is a similar kind of thing to what you described there. And to me, it's just absolutely crazy how, number one, these people sit in a room and come up with these ideas and think, yeah, that's a great idea. You know, we'll definitely bring that in. And number two, it's actively trying to get pushed into law. I mean, in terms of Australia, what kind of opposition have you seen in the media? Has there been like a media kind of pushback to this bill?
No, not really at all. We've gotten a couple of articles in the mainstream media talking about the bill, but it's been that sort of very, I'd say, balanced coverage. So they've used our viewpoint, and they've also used the viewpoint of like the pro viewpoint. And so there's actually, with this bill, it came into being in a really strange and kind of muddied way. So the MP who's responsible for it, he's been drafting it for sort of about 18 months or so. He did some consultations where he sort of did a survey and asked for some opinions, but didn't really share the draft of the bill. And then he decided that it would be 3 bills. And so one on sex self-ID and the prostitution and the surrogacy and the violence orders and that sort of thing. One bill on banning conversion practices. Yeah. Now, of course, clarifying here, we all know gay conversion is ineffective. You know, torturing someone to make them not gay, I think, it's very rare these days, and I would not support that. But the problem is when they bring in gender identity conversion, and that means it criminalises talking therapy.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was another bill on intersex provisions. And the funny thing is, like, at the same time as these 3 bills were put out, our government was also is also looking and consulting on a bill about conversion practices as well. So there's kind of these competing legislation priorities in New South Wales, and it's been really confusing. And it's very confusing for journalists even to talk about it.
Yeah. And
we find when we talk to journalists, when we talk to MPs, they're still confused about all the different threads. And that, we come and we say, look, we don't want sex self-ID. And they sort of think we might be talking about gay conversion. Right. So they're really, we've got an uphill battle trying to educate the parliament and to trying to educate the population about the differences between those things.
Yeah. For sure. And I guess just on the back of what you just said, I guess it's on purpose then. The language in this bill is designed to kind of go under the radar and also confuse MPs and also the journalists to talk about this. And like you mentioned at the start of the show, it's all designed in stealth to get this passed through, and there's clever ways that they'll do it, which just shows you how manipulative this all is to me. And very concerning. I mean, so there's clearly some people who are against this. What kind of efforts are underway in Australia to stop this from happening? Because obviously you guys are doing great work. Are there any other groups who are trying to kind of work with you or do a similar job in trying to stop this from going through?
Yeah, absolutely. We've got, we are collaborating with a few other groups here. We've got sort of a very tight knit collaboration with a few other little groups. And I think that broader sort of gender critical movement in Australia, it's still kind of developing and emerging.
Yeah.
So we still do have quite a few groups that are doing their own sort of thing. So, and we tend to be sort of little islands, I think, at the moment. So definitely working with LGBT Alliance Australia and Australian Feminists for Women's Rights. They're a left-wing, specifically left-wing lobby group. But then there's also people like Rachel Wong from Women's Forum Australia who are also working to raise awareness of this bill as well. And I know she's actually got some really good social media posts out. So yeah, what we find as well is that in Australia, because we have quite a few states, most of our states already have the self-ID or the conversion therapy practices. So once we fight this one, then we'll be looking at conversion therapy in Tasmania and also self-ID in WA as well. So it won't be over for us.
Yeah, it's the first step.
Yeah. I mean, we read something a couple of days ago, I think it was, that Melbourne, I'm not sure if you guys heard about this story, you probably did, but they're basically bringing in children as young as 3 years old into a clinic in Melbourne to go through gender affirming care, I think it was.
Yeah.
I mean, where's the outcry? That's my concern of all this, because there's so many concerning parts of this bill which you've mentioned, and I see a lot of stuff in Australia and also here and other parts of the world where it's just clearly wrong. It's just clearly wrong on so many different levels, I guess. And it's just crazy to me. And when we've talked to you guys in the background in DMs, the public have been very much against this from what you've told us. And rightly so, of course. What kind of, activism is being done? Because you guys are doing stuff, of course, but, is there a bigger push to kind of get more people involved within the general public on this?
Yeah, or in the schools.
Yeah, or in the
like
schools or
with
anything,
parents
or yeah,
or anything like that.
Yeah, I'll let Kit correct me a little bit, but my sense, we do a lot of like street leafleting.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think the sense is that like when I've done leafleting, I've never been opposed, and I do it quite regularly. But I don't do it in necessarily like there's particular parts of Sydney where you will get opposed, and we have people, yelling obscenities at older women, which is just so terrible. But generally, when you're speaking to people and when you explain what this bill does or what's going on, you sort of get people who know that it's going on. And it's normally because they've seen what's happening in sport.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sport's really in sport. And that's just one of the most absurd parts of it.
Yeah.
It's all absurd.
Yeah.
But when you explain to people what's going on, the first response is, which I think is understandable, is surely not.
Yeah.
Surely they're going to do that, not prisons. No, not, like they don't know that it's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and I think that's probably a natural psychological response. It's much easier to believe that this person in front of me is a conspiracy theorist than actually thinking that all of the institutions have been captured. Everyone is afraid to talk about it in media, in their workplaces, all those sorts of things. For example, when I talk to mums and say, oh, have you asked your school what their policy is on this?
Mm-hmm.
None of them have said yes. None of them know how to do it. I tell them, you can just tell them no, that you can't teach that. And they're like, can I tell them no? And I was like, yes, you can tell them no.
Yeah.
There's just we've still got the hush. I feel like in the UK, they're losing the hush, around this issue, but I feel like we've still got it here.
Yeah.
But then it's quite soon, because I can point to policies being changed, like even on the women's prison thing, all the women's advocacy groups for women in prison want men in prison.
Mm-hmm.
All the ones that I can find. That's nuts. Like, how did that?
Yeah.
And so, that's just what I wanted to contribute to that answer. So in the sense that the public is against this is when we talk to the public and we explain what's going on, they're against it, even those who are very compassionate to people who identify with the other gender. They actually do think there's such a thing as a gendered soul. I've spoken to maybe 2 people like that. Still, they sort of acknowledge they shouldn't be changing with 13-year-old girls. There's
still a line that they don't think should be crossed. Yeah.
Even that tiny percent of the population who believes the ideology, I don't,
Yeah.
I always say this, but it's probably not true. But I just feel like no one believes this. They just say that.
No one really does. Like very few people.
Yeah, I mean, we've often said this, but to me, it's like a trend as well. That it's now like trendy to be trans for a lot of young people, and this has been pushed in the media, of course, and it's influenced parents, it's influencing schools. And when these kids, come out as transgender, as like a lot of these kids do now, I think I read the other day that 20% of Gen Z kids in America now identify as LGBTQ+. 20%. 20%.
Is it 20? Oh my God.
Yeah, 20%. So to me, it doesn't really make any sense that we've seen such an increase in this group. And it is tied to this media push to highlight this. And, your mum, you've got kids here. Why do you think this is going on?
Well, I think we've just put such a push on like putting a gender on like toys and activities, which if you have kids or have ever been around kids, they'll just kind of play and do whatever they want, especially at school when they get to play with new toys or, like for us, like we have girls here, so if they're interacting with boys, then they might play more sports with them or trains or trucks, whatever. And it's like all of a sudden we've put an association that if they are doing those things, that they must be born in the wrong body and they're boys as well. And it's so ridiculous because we all know, at least people with common sense know, that kids are just playing and they don't see a problem with whatever they're doing. And so the moment we're putting those thoughts into their heads, that's what brings them doubts. And then, then you have, depending what kind of influence around them, they have people saying, yeah, you are. And oh my God, you might be actually a boy. And then, kids have imaginations as well, which is like, and then they're not developed. So this is why we don't let them make critical decisions as children. So, you get it in their heads. They might get a bit excited, like, what's going on? I don't know. And like, they're getting like, praise or affirmations from everybody. And then they're going to clinics, hardly getting any psychological evaluation, and then just put on the path to become like a cash cow for these medical industries.
Yeah. And what we discovered here as well, we have something which is called OHIP, which is like the NHS in like the UK, the National Health Service, but the Canadian version.
Yeah.
And there's a new clinic opened here
it's the capital of Canada, in Ottawa.
And basically any sex change surgeries are now covered under the National Health Service here.
Ridiculous.
So taxpayers are paying for it. And is that like a similar case there for you guys in Australia?
Yeah, they've been agitating for that for some time. And so it sort of keeps bubbling up to the surface, and they keep sort of raising the issue. And at the moment, they're not covered by Medicare, which is our national health system.
Yeah.
But it's only really a matter of time. Like, that conversation keeps being put onto the table. And like, it's just astounding. Like, our dental care isn't covered. So you can get some basic dental care, but if you need, like, if you have very painful wisdom teeth, or you need a root canal or something, that's not covered under Medicare. And yet that would improve the lives of so many people if we could actually, cover that sort of care. But I just want to point out, we do have a Tasmanian senator, Tasmanian Greens senator, who is married to a Tasmanian Greens MP. So we have one in the upper and one in the lower house. She has a trans-identified daughter.
Right.
And I think it was last year, sort of a bit of a furor came out in the Guardian about protect trans kids, and essentially these two parliamentarians are so rabid TRAs. When Posey Parker came to Tasmania, they were very aggressive, let's say that. But one of the things that appeared was an article in The Guardian where this girl's sister had written a poem about how she knew that this girl was always a boy. And there's a picture of this child at like age 2 or 3 at the beach wearing board shorts. And this is the memory that sort of confirms that this child is really a boy, because they used to like to go swimming just wearing shorts and not a bikini top when they were about, 3 or 4 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the people who, I don't really know why parents are going along with this, but the ones who are, some of them are in very influential positions in our government. And what we do find is it is, like you say, it's based on stereotypes. Yeah. I mean, this kid just wants to wear shorts to the beach.
Yeah. What happens to being a tomboy?
Yeah, right.
True.
Not every girl is girly, and not every boy is very, very masculine and, like an alpha male. And that's okay. And it's very sad because, at the end of the day, if you think about it, you're basically telling a child that there's something wrong with them.
Mm-hmm.
And like, that just breaks my heart. Like, imagine just saying that to your own child and affirming that, yeah, they were born wrong. Whether you believe in God or whether you believe in science, either way, something happened in the system. So either God made a mistake or there was something wrong in science and it made you the opposite sex. I mean, like, either way, that's going to give you like psychological issues for the rest of your life, because you're always going to wonder why that happened. And then, you know, even if you go through all the physical changes, you're still going to feel feel inside like, you know, you're still always going to wonder why. But meanwhile, there was actually nothing wrong with you to begin with. And if somebody was just, you know, giving you a cuddle, letting you know that there's no right or wrong way to be a boy or a girl and to just be accepting of yourself, they probably would. And also, puberty is probably the worst time of your life at that age.
Yes.
Like, very hard, awkward, you're vulnerable, like you're uncomfortable, but you grow from it. And, you know, eventually it's over and you become more and more sure of yourself as you get older. So it's like, if you just let children go through that stage, and yes, it might be uncomfortable, but just keep reassuring them and, you know, making them feel loved for who they are, they'll be okay. You know, they don't need all of this.
For sure. And it's a very sinister movement in some ways, because as we all know, I mean, if you allow a child to go through the process of going through puberty, I guess, that more than likely they're going to grow out of this phase anyway. So it's a very sinister and manipulative and also very creepy. Let's be honest there. It's a very creepy thing to do, to put a child on experimental drugs and stop them going through a natural biological process, which we've all had to go through for thousands of years, you know, and it hasn't been a problem until the last few years. I mean, what kind of, in terms of Australia, what kind of puberty blocking drugs are used there? Because I know the ones which are used here and also in America are for cancer treatments. Is that right?
Yeah, like I don't know the names of them, but essentially they're not regulated. They're basically used to castrate men in, you know, male predators, used for different diseases or cancers like prostate cancer. And then they just so happen to also block puberty. But what, you know, parents or children are not really informed of is that that actually sterilizes them for the rest of their lives. Mm-hmm. And it's not reversible. It's not like they could just stop taking them and everything will be fine. It, you know, it ruins and like stops the whole biological process of their body, their brains, like their development. So, you know, this is why we kind of call it like we're turning these children into like cash cows, because they will be in and out of the medical industry, like in hospitals, surgeries, complications for the rest of their lives, which is, you know, really disturbing and again, just devastating. And this is why we should not let children who think that they know what they want make these decisions. Like, and we should allow parents to be able to make the decisions for them and not have repercussions like going to jail and not have any say of what happens to their child. It's madness, really.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, there are actually provisions in this equality bill that a tribunal can actually make the decision on behalf of the parents, and it removes the right of the parents to find out that the child has sought these treatments or has sought a legal sex change.
Yeah.
And yeah, we have the same drugs here. I think goserelin, Lupron, and triptorelin are the three that tend to get prescribed. We have a rebate scheme here called the Pharmaceutical Benefits Scheme, where like a pharmaceutical company can apply to have these medicines like on a list, and then the government will pay so that people can get them at a reduced cost.
Right.
And there's been movements to try to get these sorts of drugs onto this PBS scheme for, I'd say, at least 10 years that I know about. And I believe the sticking point is that the pharmaceutical company has to apply, right? And the fact is that they don't apply. They haven't tried to get it onto this list because it's not. They're not rated, or like they're not tested for blocking puberty. I've looked up the usage instructions for these drugs, and they basically say, you know, you have to be dying to receive these drugs. That's how like bad they are for you, that you have to be at stage 4 prostate cancer. And or if you take it for endometriosis, they will only allow it for 6 months of treatment. They won't pay for you to have it for longer than that because of how harmful it is. And yet they just want to give these drugs to 10-year-olds who want to wear shorts and not a skirt. Like it's
insane.
Like these are irreversible, like it's irreversible damage that you're doing to children, and it's just being allowed and pushed through basically every country in the West and Australia. And you know, there should be more outrage on the streets. There should be, like, every parent, no matter what your stance is, and it's very anti-gay and anti-lesbian, just let your child grow up instead of being mutilated, sterilized, and at the end of the day, not even going through the root cause of their mental health problems. Because, you know, we've seen most of these kids either grow out of it or they're on the spectrum. They've got potentially they've been through child abuse or child trauma. And so there's other underlying issues that are not being put forward. And that's also what's really sad, because they're still going to grow up as adults, not happy, confused, maybe depressed. And this is like their mental health is not even being supported enough. And I mean, you can kind of see it with like some of these, like when you look at like TikToks and stuff, like we don't have TikTok, but they'll get posted on X. And you can see like the mental health state of some of these people who identify as trans. And, you know, you just want them to get some mental health help, because it's so obvious that they need it. Not in a rude way, but just, you can tell that they're just not being, well, maybe some, but you can, I'm trying to be kind, but you can just tell that, you know, they're lacking that mental health support, and, you know, somebody kind of bringing them back to reality. So they're just going way up in the clouds. No one's telling them otherwise, and nothing is getting resolved. And why do we want our kids to go through that? You know, you can kind of already see how it's going to play out.
Yeah, I mean, we've often said this. These young people, kids, they're victims of being born in the wrong society, not being born in the wrong body. Because, you know, if they were born 20 or 30 years ago, they'd probably be like us on YouTube, you know, talking to you guys, saying how insane this all is. But instead they're getting wheeled down to a gender clinic to say that they're born in the wrong body. It's honestly insane to me how we've got here as a society. And, you know, it's been pushed through social media. And you mentioned TikTok there. You've got you've got influencers like Dylan Mulvaney. You've got Jeffrey Marsh, all these creepy just clowns to me, just absolute clowns. And you know, and
they're mocking women.
Yeah, they're just mocking women, and they're influencing children to doing things which they shouldn't be doing. Is there any prominent kind of Australian influencers like Dylan Mulvaney? Because I haven't really seen any, but is there any?
I'm sure there are.
Yeah.
Look, yes and no. I don't think we really have a Dylan Mulvaney equivalent, to be honest. And it's been one of the interesting things about like the UK and watching how that's all unfolded. There's a lot of those TRAs that are really vocal, and they're really willing to get out there in the media and say really dumb things that you can argue against pretty effectively.
Yeah.
But our sort of TRAs tended to be a little bit quieter. But we have our ABC, which is our state-funded broadcaster, and our SBS, which is our other state-funded broadcaster. They are really big on supporting drag and non-binary and really pushing like trans identities. So they actually have a dedicated Instagram channel called ABC Queer, where they push like gender identity nonsense. So they've got like a full team that's dedicated to it. So and we've got like a famous drag queen called Courtney Act.
We
That's
just
what
saw
Kate
that.
said.
Saw
Courtney
that come
Act.
up. Yeah.
Yeah, so he's often, and I sort of first became aware of him a few years ago, and I sort of noticed like, oh, there's this really glamorous woman on ABC being asked about women's issues, and then you sort of watch the program and think, oh, hang on a minute, they're asking a man to comment on women's issues.
Yeah.
So yeah, he does kind of get wheeled at, and they say that he has experienced both sides. Because he's been a man and a woman.
Well,
Put on a wig.
It's honest. It's laughable when you watch some of these like Dylan Mulvaney, and like what he describes is being a woman, and it's just like you have no idea. Like the things that he'll be so excited to show off is like, guys, I'm carrying a tampon in my purse. It's like, do you know girls don't really like brag about that? That's something we kind of dread every month. And you know, they think that, you know, wearing makeup and doing your hair and doing your nails, like that just makes you a woman. And it's laughable to women, because we know that like yes, of course, that's what some women do, but it's like that's like the tail end of it. That's not what it is to be a woman. And so when you hear some of these people, you're like, they really don't have a clue. You know, they just don't. But you know, these people get propped up in like the media. And I mean, again, with Dylan Mulvaney, like they're trying to push this narrative. And, you know, we saw an advertisement for like men wearing makeup, like women's makeup now. And, you know, Nike or Adidas, I forget which one, but they were trying to like put a trans model in like a woman's bathing suit, but it's like they didn't even have the same physiology that we like, the same attributes that a woman has. And it's just like, you're not catering to the audience. Like you're trying to sell a woman's product, you should get a woman to do it. And so there are a lot of people not buying into it or boycotting certain products or brands, but it's like, even though the actual percentage of trans people is so minimal, it's being propped up so much in the media. And, you know, it's like a total contradiction. Like they want to be a woman, but they're so against women's rights in some ways. Like they want to invade our spaces, our sports, and not be supportive of the fact that women want these spaces to remain for them.
It's because it's a misogynist movement.
Well,
That's
yeah,
why, because
it's
at the end of the day,
just a facade. Yeah,
at the end of the day, they're men.
I know.
You know, they're men at the end of the day.
Yeah.
You know, and we saw a couple of weeks ago. I'm not sure if you guys saw this, but Munro Bergdorf. Have you heard of him? Munro Bergdorf.
Yeah, he's the ambassador to the UN for the UK, wasn't it?
Yeah,
for women, the champion for women.
Yeah, so the UN appointed him as the UK champion for women. So it's just insane how an organization like the UN, right, can employ a man, let's be honest, to be the female champion, and we're just supposed to just sit here and accept that, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, it's insulting.
It's just nuts to me.
You can't make it up, really. It's just
every time you see, yeah, it's true. It's every time you see it, you're like, this should be more of a surprise, and yet it's not anymore. But I mean, especially this person, Munro Bergdorf.
Bergdorf,
yeah, it's a weird name. But like he's such an advocate for trans activism. Very blatantly racist in the media, and has been fired from jobs in L'Oreal.
Yeah, he was fired. He was fired from L'Oreal. He was fired from the Labour Party as well.
So I mean, even UK, just the trans aside, everything that this person says publicly is so offensive, and so like you wouldn't want this person to represent a company, or let alone UK women at the or UN women championing like that. It's just the image alone, it's just ridiculous. Like, and they don't even support women's rights. They want to push more trans rights and trans activism as their position as a champion for UK women. So it's just like, again, it's a very big slap in the face to women. There's many women in the UK who would have been more fit for this position, but they gave it to a trans person. And
even my mum would have done a good job. You know, she's in the UK. Just give it to my mum to do it. You know?
Yeah.
I imagine, though, that it was women who appointed him, right? Would that be the process?
Both. I think it was by vote, but I mean, there's been men and women like supportive of it, which is just insane. Like, when women are supporting this, or women in like supporting trans in their sports and stuff, I just think like, I'm a bit ashamed for you, you know, like it's very disappointing. Like, you're going against what, you know, we've stood for over a century, and, you know, we should be fighting really hard to keep these spaces and like the integrity of our sports. And so when I hear some women say like, oh, they don't care, like it's fine, and it's just very disappointing as a woman. I'm just thinking, you know, of course I'm not a professional athlete, but I mean, anybody can see how wrong it is, especially in certain sports. It's very wrong. Like physical
really.
contact.
Yeah.
I know, but I mean physical contact sports. It's just dangerous, and it's a matter of safety. Like, they've introduced in America that, you know, trans are going to be able to box against women. And it's just like, it's madness. Like, again, you can't make it up. Like, they'll be getting paid and have, you know, millions. I don't know how many people watch boxing, but they'll have a large audience just watching a man beat up a woman, and that's okay. It's just, it's madness, and it's going to have to go very wrong before they realize what a mistake they've made, which is also a shame.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens, and, you know, how female boxers do react, and whether or not they are able to do some sort of boycott or something. I wanted to mention as well, like, I don't know if we really have any of those glamorous, high-profile sort of trans activists here in Australia. Not that I'm aware of, but one person we do have is a fellow by the name of Roxanne Tickle, and so
Great name, yeah.
apparently Tickle is his last name, so it is a family name. It's not as odd as you might sound.
Okay.
But Roxanne Tickle plays women's hockey at so he plays women's hockey at a community level, and you know, he's like, oh, my team love me, they welcome me, etc. And, you know, on the one hand, that's really lovely for them, that, you know, they've been able to make that decision. But on the other hand, I do wonder how much of a decision they were able to make. He is, I wanted to mention as well that he's actually suing an Australian woman called Sal Grover, because she created a female-only networking and social media app called Giggle. And he applied.
I think I heard about
Yeah.
I think I heard about this, yeah.
Yeah, we're looking.
So he applied to go onto the app, and then there's an onboarding photograph, and she saw his photograph and said, oh, that's a man. And she, you know, deleted his account. And so apparently that was enough for him to claim discrimination on the basis of gender identity. And they're going to the federal court. I think the hearing's in April. So poor Sal, you know, she's, one of the interesting things, though, is that when it is in the media, there'll be a headline like, you know, woman suing over being denied access to the app. And there'll be a picture of Sal, and she's quite young and quite good looking. And people will often assume, oh, that's the woman who is in the headline. That's the woman who is suing. But the woman is actually a man.
Yeah.
And
Oh, sorry. No, I didn't mean.
I'll go. Sorry.
No, I was gonna say that we've had a similar case here. We actually had April Hutchinson on the show. She's a power lifter in Canada, and she was suspended for 2 years for simply stating a fact that there was a biological male competing and has a clear advantage in the sport. And they decided to suspend her for 2 years. She didn't say anything else that was rude. She just stated a fact. They've since reduced her sentence to 1 year, but this person who identifies as a woman, made videos online openly mocking the women, basically calling them weak and that their bench press was really crap and how are they even lifters and all this. And it's like, well, you're competing against women and you're a man, but in his division, he was like 6,000th place, and then comes into the women's side and gets like the top 4 out of 5 places. And so it's like, well, just because you're not good enough in the men's league doesn't mean you have the right to come to the women's league. And at the end of the day, you are a man and, you're mocking women. So it's like, this is why I don't even feel like most of them support women, because they mock them, or they're, identifying as trans to compete in sports and get the titles. We've seen it in the States as well with like Leah Thomas and things like that. And it's just, this is why it's like, where's the outrage? If all the women on the team, whatever sport it was, just band together and, said, we're not going to play unless it's fair for women, there would have to be some kind of change, because they wouldn't be playing because they would be standing for it. I don't know. I mean, I guess it's more complicated than that. But to me, it's like, if you got everybody on your team to say, no, we're not going to, we're not going to play this football match. We're not going to compete in swimming or basketball, whatever it is. You would think they would have to do something to change it. And it's very frustrating.
You would hope so. I think it is more complicated than that, and especially if you've trained all your life for something. It must be such a hard decision to have to make. One of the interesting things about this bill and the provisions that are sweeping across Australia is that they're actually wanting to remove legal sex entirely. So we won't actually have a record of someone's legal sex. So at birth, you can just record that you are nothing, or you can record that you're a giraffe, or you can record that your baby is a chocolate gender. In one sense, these problems will go away, but in another, they'll just get worse and worse. And but we won't have any way of talking about them.
I mean, what you've just said there was that based on the fact that you can now change your birth certificate if this comes in,
or if you're having a baby.
Yeah, you actually, the provision in law is that you don't have to register a sex, and you can change. I mean, if you are changing your sex marker, you can change it to anything that's less than 100 characters that isn't a swear word.
What's going on, guys?
Again,
What's going on?
You can't even make this up. It's madness. I think that's even worse than what was happening in the UK with the self-ID.
Yeah,
because
that is worse.
I think the self-ID in the UK is just that you can, identify as a woman or a man, either or. But I don't think it's to whatever, as long as it's under 100 characters and not a swear word. My God.
Yeah, that's Australia for you.
You can change it quite frequently, I think, as well.
So you can you just change it as many times as you want.
Yeah,
well.
But I mean, again,
you
that's
just have to pay the fee
of the system. Like, and all the paperwork, honestly. Be like, oh, you again? You were just here last week.
That's mental.
Now, I'm really sorry, guys. I have to drop off. I have to talk to somebody else. But thank you so much for having me on. This is amazing. It's been great to talk to you.
Yeah, thanks so much. And don't be a stranger. Stay in touch, and we'd love to have you on again. at some point.
Yeah.
All right.
Anytime.
Thanks, guys. I'll run away now. Okay.
Yeah.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.
Brilliant.
All right.
Well, yeah. Well, I guess we'll end the show there then, Monique.
Unless there was anything else you wanted to say or
yeah,
highlight.
I was just about to ask
okay.
if there's anything you want to highlight before we end the show, I guess.
A few things. Just from what you were saying about sport, I really do think that many women don't know that they can say no.
Mm-hmm.
There is a young woman I know who plays volleyball, and there is only one women's volleyball competition in Sydney. And a lot of the first grade are all male teams. She's not in the first grade, but there is a man in her thing. And she just didn't know that she could say no, even when this man went into their changing rooms and decided to show everyone the new breasts that he'd gotten. It's just like the amount of women who don't know that they can just say no to this. I think it comes from a lot of women thinking this is just happening now. You know, this is just the way that it's going to be. Our society, they're so captured by these things. It's just the way that it's going to be. Mm-hmm. So working out ways that we can tell women and men that they can say no. Yeah. And that we can say to women who say, oh, I wouldn't mind a man in my changing room. It's like, that's not your right to give away.
Mm-hmm.
And saying to the politicians, particularly on this bill, women's rights are not yours to give away. Mm-hmm. They were won by women. They're not yours to give away. We won't accept it. Mm-hmm. And if it does pass, we will do everything we can to put the exact words that you said in the debate around all of your electorate every time you're up for election from here on in to hold account. But we're doing everything we can to not let it pass. Yeah. And but the capture is huge. Mm-hmm. Particularly among the health things, like you were talking about that earlier, like New South Wales Health is like, it's rainbow and mm-hmm. They went for it. The activists always go for the health things. Mm-hmm. So they can say, oh, the health organizations agree with this. But then when you talk to the policy people, they don't necessarily agree with it. Yeah. So anyway, that's just what I wanted to go to end, is just to clearly say to any Australian, anyone overseas, if you can amplify the voices of Australian women at this time, particularly in New South Wales, if we defeat it in New South Wales, the pressure on the other states will grow to, mm-hmm. If we make enough noise, we can persuade these weak politicians
for sure
to vote differently, and we can win. That's what I would like to be communicated. Yeah. You can make change, and also just to take this opportunity to call out the MPs mm-hmm. who, when we speak to them, they don't know, they're so not across this issue, guys. They don't know what's happening. They've never heard of the Tavistock. They've never heard about puberty blockers, some of them.
Yeah.
They don't know what's happened. They've never heard of what happened with Nicola Sturgeon, like all these big things. And I like to put the fear of God in them, being like, well, you know now, so you better make something up.
You have a responsibility and a duty, for sure.
That's right, to protect the vulnerable, and to protect vulnerable people with distress about their gender from doctors and surgeons who are just butchers, and to protect vulnerable women and girls. Mm-hmm. And that if they don't know about this bill or they're not across the issues, they cannot vote it through. They're not yours to give away when you haven't even thought about it. So that's a little rant to wrap it up.
No, it's fine.
I loved it. I loved your rant with the megaphone outside the building. That was very good as well.
Yeah. No, we love a rant on this show. Yeah, we rant a lot about this topic on this show. You know, pretty much every single night we do it.
Yeah, we take turns basically. Yeah, we both go on.
So we understand the passion, and we understand the need to raise our voices to this, and you know, we'll do our best to promote this issue and raise more awareness, and hopefully more people can raise awareness too, because like you said, it affects everybody. It doesn't just affect people in Australia, it affects people worldwide, what these kind of laws do. And people don't realize how good they've got it until things are taken away. And that's why we need to protect female rights, women and girls. So thanks so much for coming on, Monique. It's been a pleasure to meet you, and we really hope that you guys win this fight, and we'll do our best to help you, of course. Of course, you're welcome back on at any time as well.
Yeah. Or if you guys ever have events coming up that you want to highlight or anything like that, for sure, just let us know. Our DMs are always open. Doors always open to come back anytime. And we won't mess up the time again. I'll keep in mind the time difference. I actually added the time there on my phone in the world. I'm not going to forget next time.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on and for amplifying this issue. The 8th of February is our big day that we're working up to, which is it's the first debate. And just thank you so much for speaking out on this from just a genuine heart. And together we can win. I'm sure of it. Yeah,
we need to. It's for the future generations, and again, like you said, it's basically don't be selfish. Just realize that even if you're okay with it, not every woman is, and think of children as well. So it's very important. Absolutely. Yeah.
Brilliant. So we'll pop you backstage and stuff, and we'll do our little outro, and then we'll end the show. But thanks so much, Monique, and we'll probably speak to you in the next few days, I guess. But awesome. Thanks so much again. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Take care. So that was Monique and Kit from the Women's Rights Network Australia. Great pleasure to speak to them both. And they're doing great work. We've tried our best to highlight this for you guys on our microscopic channel in the world of YouTube, of course. But we make this point on the show a lot. The more people speak out about this, the more people raise awareness, the better it's going to be for everybody, and the better it's going to be for the future of women and girls, and also just men as well, because we all want to be equal. That's to the point. We want equal rights for everybody, and at the moment, it's very much not equal for women and girls.
Yeah, so most men are not okay with this either.
Most men are pissed off too.
I would say that in the majority of men,
apart from Dylan Mulvaney, of course, he's definitely not pissed off.
Honestly, he, I think, is one of the worst that does mock everything that a woman is, or he just does all the stereotypes of what a woman is, and they're all wrong. He'll never be a woman as much as he tries, but it's just frustrating. But I think the more that people do open that conversation and speak on this, the more that the awareness spreads across all of these countries. We need to get back into reality and fight for our rights. We didn't think maybe we'd have to do this in 2024, but if that's how it is, then we need to do that collectively as a society who want to move forward with equal rights, protecting our children, and maybe better mental health care systems who don't try to just brainwash you.
Absolutely. So we'll leave it there, guys. Thanks so much for joining us. Thanks so much to everyone.
Thank you. We're trying.
Thanks so much to everyone in Australia for joining us today. Nice to see some new faces here, of course. And don't be strangers. We do talk about this issue a lot, so please come back and join in the conversation as well.
For sure.
Just before you go, if you are new to our channel, please remember to like, share, and subscribe to the show. It does really help us a lot.
For sure. And definitely follow us on X. We do post a lot on there. We share a lot of great information as well. If you do want to support the show, you could become a YouTube or Patreon member. Links are in the description, and of course the bio of our homepage, and on X. We go live every day at 8 p.m. Eastern. That would be 12 p.m. in Australia.
So you might
I've learned that now. Yeah.
So you might have to catch the replay if you guys are at work, to be fair. But
you're not.
It's all good. You can watch the
break,
replay.
yeah.
It's all good.
We do have a lot of people who watch the replay, but yeah, we do try to highlight very important topics going on in the madness around the world. So yeah, hopefully you guys will come back. Those who tuned in for WRN Australia, hopefully you guys come back and support the show. It means a lot to us. And yeah, we'll see everybody tomorrow night.
See you tomorrow. Take care of yourselves.
Take care.